What is going on, fans of the My Hero Academia card game? I wanted to take some time here to talk with you guys today about a deck idea that I had, uh, where basically I look at this game as it's getting a little harder for newer players. That barrier to entry is there as far as accessibility to cards, cost of cards. See a lot of questions popping up on the Facebook group now. You got newer players or people that are interested in playing potentially that are asking, where should I start? Where should I begin? What should I buy? What boxes are going to be the best value? Or how much do I really even need to play? And I kind of put this to task here for myself is, can you take just a lot of commons and uncommons and build something that can be competitive in a local environment? If you've got a newer player that's walking into your store, somebody that's potentially interested in the game, isn't quite sold on spending money yet, is this something that maybe even you can help out your local group with? So what I've done is explored that possibility and found a Pauper deck using strictly commons and uncommons, things you would find in booster packs, things that your local group could probably come up with excess of to put this together. And what I've come up with is an Ojiro 2 deck that I found to be completely competitive in a local environment. Used it at our store provisional just this past weekend, ended up taking second place with it. The deck is pretty nutty. So what I want to do is share with you guys a deck list. And again, hopefully inspire some of you guys to think outside the box a little bit when trying to introduce the game to new players. Give them a way to step into the game for super low cost, hopefully build their interest in it, and allow them to be competitive in a local environment while they work to build their collection and grow their knowledge. So without further ado, what I want to do is go ahead and jump into the deck list for you guys. Alrighty, so jumping into our deck list. So of course we've got to start Ojiro 2. This character is amazing. One thing to note is that he is very offensive minded, not super defensive at all, but that's okay. The purpose of this deck is really just kill your opponent quickly and efficiently. So especially for a new player, I feel like that's okay to really just focus on one aspect of the game and try to learn to do that very well. And then as they grow in their knowledge and expand in their experience, be able to then learn how to potentially block better down the road. But at first, if they want to really feel successful, feel like they're doing well, I think it's okay to focus in on one aspect of the game and try to do that very well. So that's what Ojiro 2, I think, excels at very well. So his first enhance, obviously, that the attack gets +1 speed and +1 damage for each different printed attack zone in your card pool. Makes blocking your attacks very challenging and incredibly punishing if you can't block. The second enhance being a once per turn that you can add an attack from your card pool to your hand. Again, only playable if there are 3 different printed attack zones in your pool. This has 2 benefits. Well, 3, I guess. One is that you can throw more attacks with fewer in hand to start. You can clear your card pool once you've picked up a attack from your card pool, and also potentially holding over a block that you might need going into your opponent's turn. Or I guess even another would be just picking up another attack to have available to you for your next turn. So a lot of function there, a lot of flexibility, but again, pretty offensive minded, but that's okay. So let's get into the rest of the deck now that we've talked about the main character. Set that there. So the first foundation, which we'll start with our foundations that we're looking at, is going to be 4 copies of It Can't Be Fixed. It's a pretty clear cut include in the deck. It's a 0 cost foundation with a +1 mod high block that just nets you foundations. So if your opponent stuns you, you have the ability to flip this over and create a foundation advantage for yourself as the game progresses. So very good card. It also will be a target for one of our attacks that we'll see later. So set that there. 4 copies of It Can't Be Fixed. The next thing we've got is going to be 4 copies of Tight-Lipped. Again, a 0-cost foundation. That'll be a target for one of our attacks we'll see later. A +1 mod to the mid block. Again, very, very good block. And has the ability to flip a foundation to give your attack extra damage. So there's some pretty neat combos that you can do, as we'll see, that where you can flip a foundation, be it another tight-lipped or even one of our it can't be fixed, blow it up with one of our other foundations we'll see later, and then rebuild it with one of our attacks we'll see later. So again, just an inherently strong card. That's why we see it as a 4 of. The next foundation that we've got is going to be 4 copies of Mainly Passionate Guy. So the reason that we like this card is that it's only a 1 difficulty to play. It is a low block, so it spreads our block zones a little bit, and then has a response. So after you block with a foundation, you can flip this to build that face up. Again, big goal of this deck is just to create advantage quickly. So being able to potentially build out foundations on your opponent's turn to allow you to throw more attacks back at them, while also clearing your card pool on defense. So very powerful card. So that's why we're seeing that as a 4 of in this deck. Next up, we will see 4 copies of Resistance. So I think this card could be flexed into some other things. I included it as a 4 of because of the Breaker 1 block. It can block basically anything, being that's a mid block. Even if it's a half block, still getting that Breaker 1 on defense can be huge. And then on top of that, because I didn't intend to play a ton of defense, the ability to go ahead and commit this to lessen the amount of damage you're going to take. So again, one of the things that I was looking for in this card was survivability, without having to waste cards in my hand. So if I'm holding all attacks, I really don't want to block with them if I don't have to. Will if I do, but if I don't have to, I don't want to. So this card helps to prevent having to block with attacks by negating damage and keep yourself alive a little longer. It also has the response to flip to cancel a stun. So again, if you need to block and you're getting stunned down, you have the potential or the possibility to go ahead and flip this to cancel this stun. So for example, Back Alley Haymaker, super popular card, has a stun too. You can flip this to cancel that. So real huge effect there. It's all around just kind of a good value card, I felt like. But again, if you needed to win the game, if you're crunched on time going into game 3 tied and you really need to win, you're going first, for example, you might want to play something a little more offensive minded. So you can look to your sideboard to add cards that do that. But I needed something, or I felt like I needed something that could help with defense a little bit. So that's where I went with 4 copies of these. The next card that, as I mentioned, Resistance, maybe you could get away with playing fewer of. I got 2 copies of Manly Friendship. So I could see maybe going to 4 of this, 2 Resistance, or 3/3, something to that effect. But I do have 2 of these in there. And the enhance on this is a once per turn to give the attack +1 or -1 damage. So the reason this might be better than Resistance would strictly be that on offense, you could just pump through that extra damage, which may mean the difference in winning on that turn that you're attacking or not. So it also does have the survivability factor to be able to give an attack minus damage. With multiple of these in play, you can really negate quite a bit of damage on a turn. But for my build, I only went with 2. After playing in the tournament, I could have seen, again, maybe playing a 3/3 with Resistance on this one, or even a 4 of these and 2 Resistance. But some flexibility there while still keeping that Pauper build intact. So we'll set those down, those 2 of those. Next card is an amazing card from set 3 that we got, Mail Bonding. So again, talking about how do we generate advantage in a deck that's only playing commons and uncommons. And this is a huge way to do that. So Mail Bonding has a response. So flip, after you take damage from an unblocked attack, build the top card of your deck face down. So not only are we creating a foundation advantage, but there's a possibility that you build an attack down. And we are playing Hardened Jab, which would allow us to pick that attack up later and just have an extra attack to throw at our opponent for the turn. So it's a 1 difficulty foundation is all, so it's pretty easy to get in play. It's another low block, which I felt like was pretty good just to keep our block zones fairly balanced. But again, the biggest piece is just that advantage. That response there is amazing. I think we're going to see a lot of play of this card in general, but for this particular deck, it's a huge card, and it really allowed me to, on my clapback turns, just punish my opponent severely, and just push through a ton of extra damage, just having those extra foundations in play. So definitely a 4 of in this build. So that's all of our 0s and 1s. Next, we'll jump into our 2s. We've got 3 copies of Someone with Style. So it's a +2 high block, which was really solid. It is a 2-cost foundation, but the response there does come in handy at times. The ability to destroy after a foundation is committed to a stun ability, reduce your rival's attack to 0 speed. It's huge when you're not blocking a ton, when the commons and uncommons really don't have speed reduction. So it can be challenging to block attacks at times, but the ability here to reduce an attack speed to 0 does come into play at times. The other huge part on offense is the ability to destroy a foundation and ready this one. So again, kind of like what I was talking about earlier, is you may tight-lipped to flip over, it can't be fixed, or even itself. You have the ability then to go ahead and destroy that and potentially build it back in with one of the attacks we're going to see later. So just some combo abilities to push through extra damage, keep foundations in play. With tight-lipped, if you're destroying and rebuilding, you can flip it over and over for extra damage on a turn, and then having extra ready foundations to be able to throw additional attacks. This card just has a lot of value to it. So it is a 3 of. I could see maybe playing as a 4, but I did really like it as a 3. So we'll put that there. We'll jump into the best foundation in the deck. 4 copies, Student of the Art. I don't know that this deck works super well without it. I think it'd be okay, but it just puts it over the top. This card is insane. So you can see it's a 2-cost foundation with a 2-mod mid block, which is fine in of itself, but the enhance on it is wild. So it's flipped to add an attack from your discard pile to your card pool and seal it. If your character is Ojiro, which we are, it doesn't count towards progressive for the rest of the turn. So the ability to throw your first attack, flip this over, and add a zone that you're missing in hand, or a zone you're light on, or just a card that you want. I mean, there's so much flexibility here. But being able to equivocally give a +2/+2 on your first attack for the turn is crazy. And then the fact that it doesn't count towards progressive. So now your second attack, we do play a lot of 4s. You're checking a 5 to play your third attack for the turn. That is likely going to get a +3/+3 bonus to it. And then every attack subsequently then would get a +3/+3 as well. This card's wild. There's really not much else to say about it. I think that as a new player, if you're looking to use this, the challenging thing would be to ensure that you are deploying it correctly, that you're adding the right attack in the right attack zone to your card pool, and then thinking ahead to what card you may pick up with Ojiro's ability if you intend to do that for that turn. So just making sure to learn when maybe to best deploy this card. If you have 2 in play at a time, just gets bananas. Being able to give a +3/+3 to your first attack it is crazy. Card's very, very good. Love it a lot. It's a 4 of, without a doubt. Our next foundation that we've got is going to be 3 copies of Prehensile Tail. Again, it's a 2-cost foundation with a high block. That's a 3 mods. It's not the best of blocks, but it's fine. But the abilities here, again, are bananas. So the first enhance is flip if you have 4 more face-down foundations, including this one. So if you've got 3 and flip this one, it counts. You can add a momentum to your hand, or your rival discards a momentum. So again, if you're going for killing your opponent, you're trying to kill your opponent, you've thrown a throw at them a turn before, you got some momentum, you're able to pick that attack back up to really complete the pieces to the 3 attack zone puzzle, if you will. The biggest thing, or the most challenging thing here, especially for a new player, is going to be keeping track of what foundations you have in momentum, what attack zones they are, and what they do, to make sure that you pick up the correct momentum in the instances where you have more than one. Or even if you only have one, just remember what zone it is to make sure you don't accidentally pick it up if you don't need it at that time. When you get a little more in depth with your playing, one things you can look for is the block zone. So you might be lacking a block zone in your hand, and this has the ability to pick it up so you can block an attack if you absolutely need to do that as well. On top of that, it has an incredible deadlock where you can commit to give your punch, kick, or slam attack +3 damage and throw. Just insane. Giving the extra damage and throw is crazy. I never had games go that long to get to the point where it would be useful, but if it gets to that point, that deadlock enhance is going to be incredibly scary for your opponent. It might even keep them from playing over 10 foundations, just having this in play. So 3 copies. I do have another in the sideboard. I didn't think it was a 4 of in the main. You could potentially go to 2 Someone's Style and 4 of this, but I think that 3 and 3 of those fits very well for this build. So, and we're seeing 3 of this. The last foundation that you're going to see was probably my second favorite, maybe even my favorite over Student of the Art in this deck, and that's Proud Scion. So it's a terrible block, but it does have a low block, which without it we are kind of low on, but it is 3 cost, so it's a little pricey to play. But their response is so good. Committing after your rival's start phase to commit one of their foundations with an ability that grants a speed bonus or penalty. So I saw so many times where my opponent would have something like an ice gliding or even things like a You're So Obvious, which can really hurt Ojiro by resetting speed or damage to make something either blockable or less fatal. It's crazy to be able to just say, nah, I don't want that. Let's go ahead and commit it. It also gives your opponent fewer foundations to be able to use on their turn to kill you with. And then it stays committed going into your turn, so it's less for them to be able to block with coming back to your turn. So card is very strong. Loved it a lot. I'm going to see myself probably putting this into more of my traditional decks. But for this deck especially, just crazy. Fits so well with what you're trying to do. And it does have a deadlock on top of that. So, again, just more reason for your opponent to maybe not play over the 10, even though they probably could and get away with it just fine, survive, maybe kill you. It's going to make them question whether or not they should play over 10. So it's got that flip, and after your rival plays an ability, a non-character card on stage, cancel it and flip that card. So maybe not the best deadlock ability, but it is punishing for sure. And again, one more reason why maybe your opponent would refrain from playing over 10 foundations. But that first response is wicked, puts in a lot of work, love it a ton, highly recommend it. You do have the ability to, if you see your opponent isn't playing a lot of speed buffs or speed hate, to go ahead and side that out after your first game. But you can make that call later. But I got so much value out of that card. Highly recommend it. I almost wish I would have had 4 of it in the deck to start, but I'm not sure that that's advisable because it is a 3 cost. So, all right, now moving into our attacks. So that is all our foundations. We're going to be going to attacks next. So the first attack that we're going to see is 4 copies of Hardened Frenzy. Again, just a card that adds a ton of value. If it's your first attack, it's at minimum a 5/5, which is a really good speed stat, really solid damage stat. If you have those Student of the Arts, makes it even harder to block. And then if they want to fully block it, you get to build it face down after it resolves. So again, we're all about creating advantage, clearing card pool, being able to throw more attacks. Fits that bill very well. It's almost like a throw in the sense that your opponent doesn't want to fully block this. So if they don't, you're looking at like 3 damage if they don't have any damage reduction, which is no joke when you look at how quick this deck can pile on the damage. And again, if they do fully block it, totally fine. Gives you an additional foundation to play with. And we do have the ability to pick it back up and throw it at them later. If they let it go to the momentum, we have the ability to pick it back up and throw it at them later. And it does have the second enhance that if you've built a card, it gets +1 speed, +1 damage. So I did find myself at times throwing this as the 3rd attack for the turn after playing one of the other attacks that we'll see. Actually, you've got 8 different attacks that would do this. And throwing this as a 3rd attack, being an 8 speed high for 8, really hard to block and just punishes your opponent with a ton of damage. So This card's huge. Also has the low block, which we're a little bit light on if we take this out. If we don't look at this. So I don't really like to block with it, but it's there if you need it. But yeah, just super value card. Only 4 difficulty to play. Really, really powerful. The next card that we're going to take a look at, can I mention the ability to pick up attacks, is 4 copies of Hardened Jab. I think most people that have played the game know what this one does, but we'll cover it anyway. It's only a 4-cost foundation with a really good high block. The stats are okay. The speed's okay at a 3. The damage is really good at a 5. But as you'll see, the more you play this deck and the more you explore it, having the ability to make this a 6 speed for 8 if it's the 3rd attack zone, or if you've got 3 different attack zones in your pool, is pretty crazy. If you've got 2 of these in hand and you can complete your trifecta of zones, this card can just wreck people in a hurry because of the enhance. So the ability to add a face down foundation from your stage to hand and then build the next card face down. So again, what we're looking at is being able to pick up something that's committed face down and build in a new ready foundation and just keep throwing attacks. If we look at the Hardened Frenzy, if it was blocked earlier, being able to pick it back up and throw it again is incredibly punishing. But if you have 2 of these, being able to, maybe it's your 3rd attack, you play this, you pick something up, you throw one behind it. It's again, so that's 2 6/8s in a row with the ability to ready up foundations, add potential attacks to your hand, things like male bonding that can potentially build in attacks. It can't be fixed, which can build in attacks. Picking those up, throwing them again. Just so much flexibility here, so much value. But yeah, if you have 2, you can harden jab, pick up the first hardened jab with Ojiro and throw it again. Just chaining together some insane turns. This will let you just keep going, keep throwing. Even if you check bad, it kind of helps reset that, especially as only a 4 difficulty. Just crazy. Such a good card in this. That's why we're seeing 4 of it. Can't speak enough about how good that card is. The next attack we're going to see is going to be 4 copies of Overhead Reversal. So I mentioned earlier comboing with our 0 difficulty foundations. This is what lets us do that. So the Overhead Reversals. Being able to flip things over with tight-lipped, or maybe we've used the effect on It Can't Be Fixed. You can blow it up with your Someone with Style and then rebuild it in with Overhead Reversal. Or even if you don't blow something up, maybe you've got one of those in your discard pile. Again, just creating advantage for ourselves on a throw is pretty great. It is a low attack, which is fantastic. I'm really happy that it is. Most of the throws are mids, so being a low throw is really powerful. Decent stats, especially again if it's your 3rd attack, being a 6 speed for 7, that's a throw. Or if you've got the Student of the Arts, whatever it may be, if you've built that pool out, even blocking this attack feels really, really bad. So either way, if they block it or take it, you're getting through some super meaningful damage. It's a really good card. It's only 4 difficulty, so this is something that on turn 2, you could throw it, see if it hits, let it go to your momentum, and then potentially look to pick it up later with your prehensile tails. So a lot of flexibility here. Super powerful card in this deck. That's why we see it as a 4 of. The next card, probably not my favorite attack that we've got access to, but it's fine. It's going to be 3 copies of Spinning Kick. So this, along with a Hardened Frenzy, will make 7 high attacks. That's what we've got in this deck, is 7 highs. It is, again, the things that make it good is only 4 difficulty. It's got a decent block, decent stats at a 4/4, and has the EX2, which I use several times to buff that speed even further, make it harder to block. The things I do like about it, though, is it does have the ability to change the zone of the attack. So if you've got a couple of low attacks behind this, if this is your only high, you can make it a low and force that block out of hand. Or even I've made it a mid before to, again, kind of open up those hardened jabs to come through for a ton of damage. Force a block on mid and then let myself be able to chuck those giant hardened jabs through at the end of the chain. So that's a really cool enhance. Very, very potent, has a lot of play. And then the next enhance was pretty good as well. If your next attack is a mid, draw a card. If it's low, unflip it committed. So again, stuff your card pool with those student arts, and then use them on your next attack to pay for the cost if you need. And then you can unflip them and have them ready for a future turn. So pretty good. Again, not my favorite attack in the world, but it serves its purpose. It's only a 4 diff with pretty good stats at a 4/4. Again, if it's your third attack, it's a 7/7. So solid stats, but got it as a 3 of. The next one that we've got as our low to finish out the low package is going to be 2 copies of Creeping Vine Eruption. The reason I'm only playing 2 of this is that it's a 5 difficulty. I wanted to try to minimize the cost of the attacks as much as possible, make them easier to throw. No pun intended, it is a throw. But that's what makes this card good, is that it's a 5 damage throw. So if it's your first attack, it's going to be a 3-speed low for 6 at least. Obviously, you've got ways to buff that I would take advantage of, like a tight-lipped or something of that nature, mainly friendship. Ideally, when you're playing a throw, you want to land it at an odd number, and then if they block it, they're taking half rounded up, so it's got that extra damage through. I would try to avoid landing at an even number if possible. So just something to note there. It's kind of an okay high block. The 3 mods, not great. But because of the throw, I liked this attack in the deck. Just trying to guarantee damage if possible. So that's where we've got it as a 2. So we've got 6 low attacks. So the last card that I've got, I could see potentially moving one of these over to a Creeping Vine. Again, more to balance our zones. Is going to be 4 Trap Flex. Gets a really strong throw with decent stats. But it is a mid. So now we have 8 mids. We've got 7 highs and 6 lows. So we're a little unbalanced on lows. So if you wanted to balance it out 7/7/7, just take one of these and make it a Creeping Vine. Certainly a fine play. But this is really good because of the stats in general. Decent, a 3 mid for 5 throw. And then the enhance is pretty crazy. If you've got fewer foundations than your rival, it gets +2 damage. So if you're going first and you play 4 foundations and your opponent claps back with 5, let's say, the ability to make this an 8 damage throw right off the bat. Hopefully you've got some damage buff in the way of having a Student of the Art or a Tight-Lipped or a Manly Friendship, something like that to give it the extra damage to make it an odd damage attack. But regardless, it's a super strong throw. It can get through quite a bit of damage pretty early. And even without the extra 2 damage, it's still got solid stats for a throw. Yeah, really enjoyable. This card did a lot of damage for me in the event that I played this in. But again, if you wanted to try to get more balanced, that's how I would do it. I would add your 3rd Creeping Vine and cut this down to a 3. And then you're super balanced across the board, 7/7/7. So totally up to you. Totally up to how you feel about it. I didn't really have too much troubles with hunting the zones. As soon as you've got 1 in your discards, you're generally pretty good. One thing to note, if you're going to leave it at these counts, is that you might want to prioritize picking up a low if you're going to use Ojiro's ability and carry through an attack to your next turn. I highly recommend this Overhead Reversal. This is a common one that I would pick up and keep in hand after I've got my 3 zones. That way I guarantee the low, since it's my lowest count zone. Outside of that, the Hardened Jab is incredibly good also to pick back up and save for another turn if you don't think you're going to be able to kill somebody. So a couple of ways that I play that deck there. Hopefully it helps you out. That is the full list. I will have the link to this UVS build in the description. So if you want to check it out, if it's easier for you to build off of a physical list, I'll include that link in the description. It's also got the sideboard in there for you. Just a recommendation. You can tweak that as you like as well. But yeah, that's the deck. Hope you love the list here. I know, like I said, it did a lot of work for me. Really enjoyed it. I think I'm going to keep this deck built. Again, it's all extras. It's things that it's commons and uncommons, bulk stuff, really. So I think I'm going to keep this one built and just set it aside. So, all right. All right, so now that we've covered that deck list, just some final thoughts on this. If you're looking to introduce this deck to a new player, or if you're a new player who's picking this up, it's certainly something that you can test, tune, tweak this deck to your liking as you start to build that collection out. There are some really good cards that you could swap in, such as Back Alley Haymaker. Maybe you get your hands on a playset of that, and you want to swap that in instead of the Trap Flex. There's certainly some foundations that you can look through, and the rares, the promos, the starters, even that I've excluded from this list to work in and kind of change up the numbers a little bit. Definitely a ton of possibilities there. I know. So my brother actually, I mentioned at the store provisional using that and get second place. He ended up playing a full-fleshed Ojiro 2 build and took first. That being said, I don't think that it was because of the build. I think that the budget build performs just fine. I think it was really just because he ended up getting to go first game one, and it just felt like whoever went first was well positioned to take those games. But again, certainly can expand on this deck with using rares, using promos, starters. But I don't really think you need to. I think the deck performs extremely well as it is. Again, I wouldn't recommend taking this to a high-level tournament, but for a locals environment only, something that can be super competitive. And again, you can work in those rares. I just wanted to put something together that could easily be built by a play group to allow a new player, or even if you are a new player, something you could pick up super cheap, or even walk into your local gaming store at a day where they're playing and see if anybody has those extras. Likely they're just going to give them to you, and they're going to be happy to grow their play group. So good chance you could even start this game out for free. So hope you enjoyed it. Hope you like it. Try it out. Again, really hope everyone is inspired by this to explore what else is out there on the budget to help get those new players into the game without fearing that cost of entry, that barrier to entry that might exist now with 3 sets out there, and it's only going to get worse or harder, if you will, with DLC coming. So yeah, thanks everybody for your time. If you love the content, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks.